Their ulama, the actual muttaqeen, the pious people, they spend the entire year preparing to hunt, to search for Laylatul Qadr. Now, mind you, I'm saying hunt and search. So this notion that if I just show up on the 27th and it's a done deal, that is an erroneous notion. If it was that easy, I would not have seen my teachers and people that are way better than myself expending their time, their energy, their thoughts, their thinking in preparation to hunt for, to prepare for, to seek Laylatul Qadr. But another truth also comes, and this is the part that should. The truth of ourselves. You see, Ramadan exposes us. For those who have the eyes to see with, the ears to hear with, the hearts to understand with. قُلُوبٌ يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. So what are you and I seeing about ourselves during this month of Ramadan? Are we engaging how much of our time has actually been spent in the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the contemplation of our own inevitable death, in preparation and seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How much time have we spent thinking about that meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How much time have we spent thinking about what it will be like in Jannah? And what is the possibility of us ending up in the hellfire? And what that would be like. Allahumma ajirna min an-nar. Allahumma aj'alna min ahli al-jannah. Are we reading the Quran? Is it shaking our hearts? As Allah Ta'ala says. Are we standing, and when we're standing in qiyam and standing, are we thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or are we just standing there thinking about the food, what I'm going to do after, the Imam is taking too long, like subhanallah, is he trying to read one whole juz in this first rak'ah, wa kada, wa kada? Yani, what is being exposed about ourselves? Am I becoming more compassionate, more empathetic, more fearful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of the reality of who I am in front of Allah? Because that same Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that if he wanted to, if he was actually going to hold us all accountable, what would he do? Destroy all of us. Everything. All of it. All of us. So the notion that I'm a pious guy. Every amal that you and I are gifted, blessed to be able to perform is because of the tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-muwaffiq. That's the reason why we can't take credit for it. We have to do shukr for it. That's the reason why when we do it, we have to also give the haqq of it, which means that we have to give Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala his just deserve. Meaning, Ya Allah, without you, there's no way that I could have done this. Because our default setting, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. And if we look around us, because regardless how intelligent we think we are, the truth is, if we are so advanced, if we're so intelligent, if we're so this and so that in the modern age, then why are we destroying ourselves, the planet that we live on? What is happening to the mental state of the people on the planet? Yani, if you look at it, it is large-scale destruction, the likes of which this planet has never seen before. And you can pick your aspect of the existence of the human being to see the obvious truth that is there for those who can see, for those who want to see, because that's really what it comes down to. So this month of Ramadan, do you and I want to see the truth of ourselves? Do we want to see the reality, or do we want to continue to engage in this fantastic delusions that we have generated for our own selves for the sake of comfort, for the sake of convenience, and for the sake of familiarity? We love our own way of thinking. MashaAllah, with some brothers last night, and Allahu Akbar. You know these Sahaba, you know they used to always say, Allahu wa Rasuluhu a'lam. Yeah? Allah and His Messenger know better. Yani a'lamu minni. The asl of this statement is their willingness to change their way of thinking, to bring it in conformance and compliance with that which comes from Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. Ma ja'a bi, what he came with. How many of us are functioning, even in this month of Ramadan, based on our own thinking, our own understanding, our own subjective perception, as opposed to the truth that Allah Ta'ala is revealing to us in the Quran? Because that Quran, anybody who wants to, you want to know about yourself? Read that Quran. It will tell you about you. Oh, it tells me about me. And it's a sad case for those who, especially us, we're Muslims, if we don't even know what the Quran is saying about us. Or we can say, like, the Quran says about the Jews, and the Quran says this about the Nasara, and the Quran says this about the Kuffar, and the Quran says this about the Mushrikeen, and Allah says this, the Quran says this about the Munafiqeen. But what does the Quran say about me? That is this month of Ramadan. Please, may Allah Ta'ala make it easy for all of us. Don't let this month of Ramadan, and especially these last 10 days, because now the heart should be softer. We've engaged in so many a'mal because of the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't let this month of Ramadan pass by without getting that true introspection, that true reflection of who we really are in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from Kitabullah, from dhikrullah. Because it is only through this humility, this tawadu', right? Khudu' in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we can actually advance. And all of us as Muslims, I hope you do, I do. We want to advance. We want to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Qurba ilallah is something that should be very special and essential in the heart, in the mind, in the thinking of a Muslim. But how am I going to do that if I am busy telling myself lies or avoiding the truth, the reality of who and what I am at this moment? Because it is that thinking that will lock our potential and keep us from advancing. And if we're not advancing, then that means we're falling back. And if we're falling back, then that means it's a bad situation. We cannot allow ourselves to become the victims of our own fantastic delusions. Because Malakul Maut will come. And when Malakul Maut comes, there is no lie that will remain. We see it as death, meaning like it's the death of lies. There's no more lies for us after that. When Malakul Maut comes, there's no lies. No lies that we tell ourselves. There's no lies anybody else can tell us. There's no more lies. That's what death is about. It is the end of deception. We don't want to die as one of those who are deceived. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open up the truth of the Quran in our hearts and in our lives. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open up the truth of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in our lives and our way of thinking. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite our hearts based on this Quran and the Sunnah of Nabi alayhi salatu wa salam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us by His fadl, by His rahmah, His maghfirah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala advances during this month of Ramadan. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us in the time that comes after the month of Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to take the benefit from the remainder of this month of Ramadan and to seek to hunt for Laylatul Qadr. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant all of us the bounty, the blessing of finding Laylatul Qadr this Ramadan. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Jazakumullah khairan jaza wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
I've got a Shaykh your hand. Can I go with us? I actually tried to hunt for Rawi and the parking lot was